BMW's second generation G22 era 4 Series Coupe is now much more its own model, with a distinctive look and a more sporting, dynamic feel. It's also a little bigger, a little faster and a little cleverer. For brand enthusiasts, there's plenty to like. The BMW 4 Series Coupe, well, it's just the two-door version of the Munich maker's 3 Series model, isn't it? Well, it used to be, but it isn't now. Now, yes, of course, the second generation 4 Series Coupe we look at here shares its technology and its engines with the 3, but visually and in character, it's now been differentiated from its more common showroom stablemate in a way that its predecessor never was. BMW says that this Mark II 4 Series Coupe handles quite differently from a 3 as well, even a sporty one. But as before, it sizes up against the two same segment arch rivals, Audi's A5 Coupe and the Mercedes C-Class Coupe. And also as before, it's additionally available in convertible and 4-door Grand Coupe forms. This is the sort of car that BMW has always done very well, a mid-sized, rear-driven, performance-orientated coupe with a perfect weight distribution and a purposeful demeanour. It all made plenty of sense when the Munich maker first launched this 4 Series Coupe model back in 2013 to replace several generations of BMW's 3 Series Coupe. An update in 2017 reminded enthusiasts like us just how good the Coupe 4 Series was, but then in early 2020, the loyal audience for this car was tested by the divisive look BMW chose for this second generation model. This is the main thing that reviewers of this BMW have so far tended to talk about, but there's a lot more to this car than just a retro style front grille. This G22 series design is lower, wider, it's sleeker and far more sophisticated both inside and under the bonnet, where some of the engines now feature the brand's latest 48-volt mild hybrid tech. Best of all, this car has more of a distinct appeal these days, as we're about to find out. BMW claims the differences with this second generation 4 Series Coupe are more than skin deep and will be equally evident in terms of drive dynamics. We'll see. All coupes in this class are based on mid-sized executive saloons, and in that regard it's hard to think of a better starting point than BMW's 3 Series, which for this generation of models donates 48-volt mild hybrid tech for the 4-cylinder diesel and 6-cylinder petrol engines, and clever lift-related dampers that reduce body movement and sharpen corner turning. But also much here has changed over a 3, far more than was the case with the previous version of this car. The chassis has been extensively tweaked and there's a wider rear track that gives this G22 series design a 21mm lower centre of gravity than its more conservative showroom stablemate. And that's just the start. The body and suspension mountings are stiffer, and on standard suspension, this 4 rides 10mm lower than a 3. There are also firmer springs and anti-roll bars, plus this coupe gets a freshly developed double-jointed spring strut front suspension and a 5-link rear axle. Otherwise, the basic winning Bavarian formula remains much the same. Rivals have long tried to copy the front-engine rear-wheel drive BMW layout with its near-perfect 50-50 weight distribution, but they've never quite managed to deliver a package with the same kind of involving finesse. Super effective traction and stability systems keep those back wheels in check, so if you're not a driving enthusiast, it'll all feel quite normal. But if you are, then the feeling of being propelled up the road by the back wheels as you exit a bend rarely fails to offer up a great feeling of pleasure. That's assuming, of course, you've got the rear-driven setup that we're trying here and you haven't opted for the xDrive 4-wheel drive system that the more powerful variants have to have. But even there, this keeps you rear-driven for most of the time. It helps that feedback from the tactile, pleasantly chunky 3-spoke sports steering wheel is far better than you fear an electric steering system might offer. Weight through the helm building in a way that makes it easier to take every corner with just one fluid sweep of the wheel. Plus, all 4 Series Coupes now include BMW's variable sport steering, which is supposed to offer more response the more lock you apply. Personally, we think the advantages that this feature adds are slight, but they do complement the way that this car is so good at delivering more the more you ask from it. Just how much more, that will depend on a number of factors, the first of which, of course, is your selection of modes from the standard driving experience system, the rocker switch for which you'll find down here by the gear stick. As well as altering steering, throttle and the stability control software, these modes, Eco Pro, Comfort and Sport, now alter gear shift timings too on every 4 Series Coupe, because every model now has to have the brand's 8-speed ZF Auto gearbox with its steering wheel paddle shifters. This transmission now incorporates launch control for Grand Prix style getaways, and providing you've paid extra for a pricey optional M Sport Pro package, or you've chosen the top M Sport Pro Edition spec or one of the M Performance trim levels, it includes an extra sprint function that adds an extra burst of power for more rapid overtaking. On a 4-cylinder 4 Series model, another reason why you might want to add in the optional M Sport Pro package or the upgrade to pricey M Sport Pro Edition trim is to get the adaptive M suspension setup that we think you'd ideally want with this car. This deals with what can be a slightly fidgety ride over poor surfaces from the standard passive M Sport suspension. Adaptive damping irons this out a bit, particularly in the driving experience system's comfort setting, and it gets you a 4th driving mode too, set and forget auto style option badged adaptive. Now if your car has this, you'll probably end up selecting it nearly all the time, just as we've done. The advantages of doing that lie not only in your being relieved of the need to make any decisions about the driving setup, the computer software just does all that for you. It also lies in the way that the predictive technology is introduced into the process. The system uses the sat-nav to prime the car for upcoming hazards like sharp bends or junctions. It all works so smoothly that you're never really aware that so much is going on behind the scenes to make your journey just smoother and more efficient. You're going to want to know about the engine range. It might seem much the same as what was on offer with final versions of the previous F32 series model, but BMW insists it isn't, especially when it comes to the 2-litre 4-cylinder diesel and 3-litre 6-cylinder petrol units. As I mentioned earlier, these have all been embellished with mild hybrid tech that uses the 48-volt starter generator, and that provides for particularly intensive braking energy recuperation, along with an extra battery to store the electricity generated. This 48-volt battery not only supplies the electrically operated vehicle functions, but it also makes its energy available to generate additional drive power. For this purpose, the current flows back to the starter generator to provide an 11 HP electric boost during acceleration, although that is difficult to sense during day-to-day driving. Otherwise, the engine range offered on the conventional models has a rather familiar look and a familiar throaty sound too, if you pay extra for the enhanced active sound pack that also comes included as part of that optional M Sport Pro package or the upgrade to M Sport Pro Edition trim. The mild hybrid 420D 4-cylinder 2-litre diesel variant gains sequential twin turbocharging for extra mid-range punch. That unit develops 190 horsepower and 400 newton meters of torque, and that's enough to see 62 from rest flash by in just 7.1 seconds en route to 149 miles an hour if you're quick with the steering wheel paddle shifters. BMW's xDrive 4-wheel drive system is optional with that engine. It's a setup though that becomes standard if you upgrade yourself to the 6-cylinder unit of the 286 horsepower 430D variant. That 3-litre model offers 650 newton meters of shove, and it improves the acceleration time to 5.2 seconds on the way to an artificially limited maximum of 155 miles an hour. There is also an M440D xDrive derivative which uses the same 3-litre engine in a 340 horsepower state of tune, and which improves the 62 miles an hour acceleration time to just 4.7 seconds. Apart from those three engines, the rest of the 4 Series Coupe range uses petrol power, with almost all customers who don't end up choosing the 420D behind the wheel instead of the green pump fueled variant that we've chosen to try here, the conventional rear drive only 420i model, which offers 184 HP and makes 62 from rest in 7.5 seconds on the way to 149 mph. This model's 2-litre 4-cylinder power plant is lighter this time around, and it gains higher injection pressures, although you do still have to rev it quite hard to access its full performance. That is no great hardship, however. The same engine is also offered in an uprated 258 horsepower state of tune in the alternative 4-cylinder petrol model, the 430i, in which form the performance figures improved to 5.8 seconds and 155 miles an hour. For some 4 Series buyers though, only the distinctive wail of a straight 6 petrol power plant will do. If that's you, then before you rush to put your name down for the new version of the wild M4 competition flagship model, which now has standard X-Drive all-wheel drive and can, in G22 era form, put out a potent 510 horsepower, that's 60 HP more than before, spare a thought for the considerably more affordable M440i model, which features the 48-volt mild hybrid system we mentioned earlier. Like the M4, it gets X-Drive all-wheel drive and it uses basically the same 3-litre straight-six twin-turbo engine, but in a 374 HP state of tune, although that's still 40 HP more than the previous 440i, and it's good enough to propel you to 62 in just 4.5 seconds on the way to a top speed that has to be artificially limited at 155 miles an hour. Also, like the M4, the M440i gets a standard fit M Sport differential, the same limited slip diff that you'll find in the M440D and offered as an option on the 330i model. This is a box worth ticking should you value the way that this feature can proactively distribute drive torque evenly to both rear wheels and compensate for the rotational speed difference between the inner and outer wheel as you power through each bend. Even without that kind of tech though, you'll find that a volume 4-cylinder model like this one will tackle the turns with infectious enthusiasm. Most pricier modern executive models feature torque vectoring systems of some kind these days, using electronic traction systems to vary drive torque between the driven wheels, but BMW's performance control setup is particularly effective, or perhaps it just seems that way because you're so clued in always to what's going on beneath this car's wheels. Reaction to this G22 series model steering actually hasn't been universally positive. Initially it might seem very sharp and direct, but you do adjust quite quickly to it, and we've certainly got no issue with it. Unless, rather unrealistically, you expect this electrically assisted setup to have the kind of feel that you would have enjoyed in the long forgotten days now of hydraulic racks, you'll probably conclude instead, as we did, that the steering feedback on offer here is probably just as good as you're going to get in a car of this kind. What all this boils down to is that the battle lines between this car and its closest Mercedes and Audi rivals, which to some extent had become rather indistinct, are now clear again once more. This G22 4 Series BMW has restored the clear blue sky that used to exist between this model line and its closest C-Class and A5 Coupe competitors in terms of dynamic drive response. And at the same time, it's caught up to those cars when it comes to things that were slightly lacking in the previous F32 generation 4 Series Coupe model, principally, of course, in the areas of engine efficiency, safety standards, and cabin technology. Refinement's much improved too. You might not think that in a 4-cylinder diesel model on startup, but once on the move, whichever engine you choose, you'll find that this car really is very quiet indeed. In short, it's quite an achievement. If you like the looks and you're shopping in this segment, we think you'll like very much else about this car. No doubt about the main talking point here, the more vertical upright kidney grille, intended to reference classic BMWs like the pre-war 328 sports car. It's a move that's evoked a mixed reaction from brand loyalists, but as design chief Domagoj Jukic points out, until the 1980s, the grille on BMWs were always more vertical than horizontal. Arrow-shaped bonnet creases and headlamp contours with U-shaped fibre optic light guides zero in on this feature, which has to rather awkwardly incorporate this centrally mounted number plate and is framed by three-dimensional surfacing. At the outer edges of the front apron, next to these slim LED fog lights, the vertically designed intakes for the air curtains, they're supposed to accentuate the width of the car, another frontal aspect which is something of an acquired taste. In profile, there are other changes from the norm: no horizontal shaven line and no classic Hofmeister kink in the rear C-pillar, which is strange since BMW's design team claims to have borrowed styling cues from the brand's classic E9 era 3-litre CSI coupe penned by Wilhelm Hofmeister. This current coupe is 120mm longer than the previous F32 series model, as well as being 27mm wider and 6mm taller. Other features are more familiar: short overhangs, slender pillars, and flanks shaped by precisely carved surfaces with a slim window graphic and a stretched roofline that flows smoothly into the tail. Wheel rim sizes are 18 or 19 inches on the mainstream models, with the option of a 20-inch alloy upgrade for the M4. We've got the 18-inch bicolour M alloy rims here. At the rear, the slim, darkened full LED tail lamps aim to emphasise this G22 series design's width and low centre of gravity, plus there's a potent looking set of dual branch tailpipes and a striking rear apron that on the mainstream M Sport models gets an inlay in dark shadow and a diffuser element in high gloss black. Under the skin, the CLAR mixed steel and alloy platform, which underpinned the previous version of this car, is retained with its intelligent mix of steels and alloys, but BMW has tried to reduce its weight through greater use of aluminium, which is used to fashion the bonnet, the side panels and the doors. Time to take a look inside, with cabin access possible via your smartphone if you've specified the digital key option and you have the right kind of handset. The doors, it turns out, are absolutely huge. They're the longest fitted to any BMW in current production, and as you pull them back, the shallow frameless windows click down out of their fittings and they welcome you into a cabin that BMW promises will bring some of the grand touring luxury of its big 8 Series coupe into this more affordable segment. It's certainly very nice indeed, and a good deal more sophisticated than that of the previous generation model, although it's not as deliberately understated. Some things are familiar though. The motorised belt butler, which hands you your belt buckle as you get in, and the slightly lower driving stance, which aims to differentiate this interior from that of a G20 era BMW 3 Series. It positions you via unique and completely resculpted leather stitched sports seats with contoured side bolsters. They are heated and they're powered as standard. Otherwise, the cabin is exactly as it would be in a 3 Series, which means that there's a bit more silver trimming this time around to highlight the hexagonal shaped detailing that distinguishes BMW's current approach to interior design. The outer edges of the high-set centre console have knee pads to cater for a sporty driving style, and everything's now a little bit more canted towards the driver. The start button has been repositioned next to this restyled auto gear stick, and the steering wheel, that now befits the ambiance of the slightly larger and more luxurious sports coupe this car's become. There's no respite inside here though from the divisive look of that front grille if you don't happen to like it. The striking image of that appendage appears on the centre screen when you alter the various individual drivetrain settings. Ah yes, screens. It's these displays, standard as part of BMW's Live Cockpit Professional package, which you'll probably notice first once you've got nice and comfortable in this car. A 12.3-inch monitor replaces the previous model's analog dials in the instrument cluster, and a bigger 10.25-inch centre dash iDrive infotainment display is now much better integrated into the centre of the fascia. That instrument binnacle screen offers 5 customisable viewing options, although none of them provides a central pairing of circular dials which could be read simply at a glance, and one layout even lacks a rev counter, which does seem a bit heretical on a BMW. The graphics are classy, of course. It's just that some aspects of this setup's functionality still need a little more thought back in Munich. For example, the virtual speedometer and rev counter gauges, which symmetrically frame this display, use opposite swinging needles that, to start with, can be visually confusing. And although you get sat-nav mapping in the center of this monitor, you can't expand the 3D navigation layout to completely fit it, as is possible with, say, Audi's virtual cockpit layout. We've no issues with this center stack screen though, which showcases the fact that BMW has matched and in some cases exceeded the current media connectivity class standard here. This advanced infotainment package includes what the brand calls an intelligent personal assistant. Now this is a supposed fount of all knowledge which responds to voiced questions prefaced by "Hey BMW," much as with the Alexa system, Siri on an Apple phone, or the Google Assistant feature on an Android handset. BMW insist that this setup is rather cleverer than those ones. You can give it a name if you think it'll help you to bond with it better. And the press kit tells us that we can even ask it the meaning of life. It's rather more likely, of course, that you'll be using it to make day-to-day driving just a bit easier. If you tell it you're cold, it'll turn up the temperature. If you don't understand a particular feature, it will trot out explanatory text from the online handbook. Or you might want it to check out your oil level, look for fuel stations along your route, or read out your messages. This lower iDrive controller still sets the class standard for infotainment functionality. For example, it takes just a couple of nudges with it to set up just how much steering intervention you want out of the safety systems, or whether you want that at all, and the system will then remember your preference. Plus, if you're graduating on from the previous F32 generation 4 Series model, you'll be very pleased to find that both the top of this capstan controller and the screen surface are now touch sensitive as standard. In an age where many rivals are dispensing with audio volume control knobs, we were very pleased to find one retained here. You'll quickly get to grips with the calm, measured graphics of this operating system 7.0 monitor too. The layout is clear and logical. A sidebar menu gives you media, communication, navigation, car and apps options, and these are also duplicated by buttons next to the iDrive controller. These shortcut options connect you into features like the DAB audio system, 4G LTE connectivity, connected sat-nav and Apple CarPlay smartphone mirroring. All of that is standard fare. There's an awful lot of connected drive digital stuff too. A wide range of BMW vehicle apps, for example, that give you access to things like news reports and weather forecasts, and a concierge service which connects you through to an operator to help with journeying information. Plus, the system can remotely update its own software, and there's also what BMW calls an open mobility cloud that via a clever My BMW app can allow you to interact with the car when you're not in it, for example, allowing you to remotely view it in 3D. There are caveats here though. Apple CarPlay and Android Auto smartphone mirroring functionality, that is now standard without limit and not before time, although you do have to pay extra for wireless functionality. But many of this Munich maker's digital services remain life limited before becoming chargeable, some for 3 years and others like BMW Music, which brings your favourite soundtracks into your car, and Microsoft Office 365, which syncs in your emails and your calendar for just 3 months. To some extent, you really can't help feeling that it's a case of the brand giving with one hand and taking away with the other. Are there other issues? Not many. We don't think it's acceptable to have to pay extra for lumbar support on a car of this price. Plus, front visibility is a little compromised by these wide A-pillars, and of course, as usual in a coupe, over-the-shoulder view is slightly restricted thanks to the chunky rear pillars and the boot lid with a leading edge, which is difficult to see, although that issue is mitigated somewhat by a whole bank of technology which will help you to slot into spaces. All-round parking sensors, a rear view camera and a parking assistant to steer you into tight bays. They're all standard. As is a reversing assistant which activates with green or red strips on the steering wheel spokes and automatically reverses you along whatever path you've previously taken forward. You can even add the optional drive recorder package that we have here. Now this uses the various driver assistance cameras around the car to record and store video footage from different points around the vehicle. So if you ever should have an impact, then you'll be able to instantly watch it back and, well, inwardly cringe. This well-specified test car has much more, of course: a Harman Kardon loudspeaker system, audio upgrade, a head-up display that's now with a 70% larger projection area, and gesture control feature for the infotainment screen, although the functionality of that does tend to be rather hit and miss. There is even a selectable caring car feature on the central infotainment screen there that uses music, lighting and the climate control in a 3-minute long session, which will either vitalize or relax you. Yes, it is a gimmick. Yes, you will be pleased to have it after the kind of long day at the office that made it possible for you to run a new 4 Series in the first place. Getting comfortable is easy thanks to loads of adjustment for the seat and the wheel. The amount of rearward seat travel you get is particularly generous. Build quality from the Dingolfing German plant is predictably faultless, and as we suggested earlier, it all feels very high-end, helped by plenty of piano black trim and nice little touches like this contrast stitching on the binnacle cowl, the centre console and on the door cards. When it comes to cabin practicality, BMW achieves the required class standard, but no more. Both the door bins and the glove box are compartmentalised and averagely sized with bottle holders. This lidded area at the base of the centre stack reveals a couple of cup holders, along with a 12-volt port and a USB-C point. Plus there's a wireless phone charging mat if you've specified one. Another USB-C point can be found in this good-sized and nicely lit lidded box between the seats. An overhead sunglasses compartment, that however is missing, but you do get a flock-lined cubby by the driver's right knee and ticket clips on the sun visors. Getting into the back isn't the easiest task in the world, but it is aided by these electrically operable, although rather slow, front seats. They thoughtfully return to their original position once they've been used, so the driver won't need to reset them every time someone climbs into the rear. Once you are inside, you'll find the slightly strange combination of surprisingly decent legroom but slightly compromised headroom. To achieve this 4 Series model's slinky looks, BMW has lowered the roofline by quite a bit, and as a result, taller folk over 6 foot will certainly find themselves grazing their scalps on this headlining here. Still, assuming they're not sat behind a couple of basketball players or something, most adults will be fine back here on all but the longest trips. That's aided by the 41mm increase in wheelbase enjoyed by this G22 era design. Obviously, if you were to need these rear seats for adults on a regular basis, you wouldn't be choosing this Coupe 4 Series variant, but instead you'd opt for the more practical G26 designed 4-door Grand Coupe version of this model. In this conventional coupe, there isn't an awful lot of storage space back here. There are door pockets here, but they're very small. There are cup holders though in this central armrest. You do have to pay extra for the seat back nets. Occupants, however, are favoured with climate controls, individual vents and a couple of USB-C points. Finally, let's take a look in the boot. Now you have the option to specify a comfort access feature, and that will allow you to open the trunk lid by swiping your foot beneath the bumper. If key in pocket, you approach the car laden down with bags. Once open, it reveals a large but shallow space, now increased to 440 litres. That's 40 litres less than you get in a 3 Series saloon, and it's a fraction smaller than what you get in a competing Audi A5 Coupe 2. But it is usefully bigger than what's provided by this car's other arch rival, Mercedes C-Class Coupe. The boot has a practical square shape and it's smartly trimmed with a lining that's fashioned from natural fibres, but you do have to lump your items over quite a high lip to access the space provided. There are 4 tie-down points, and the extra cost extended storage package gives you these useful nets for the cargo sidewalls, and there's a net for the boot floor too. BMW insists that buyers should do without any sort of spare wheel, and that is a problem with the smallest 18-inch wheels which can be had on this car, because with those, run-flat tyres can't be had as an option. If you need more room, a flexible 40-20-40 split folding rear backrest is provided as standard, and that's accessed via these rather hidden catches in the roof of the trunk area. Although the backrests don't fold completely flat, this allows longer items like skis to be slid forward into the cabin without disturbing 2 rear-seated folk. BMW's decision to restrict trim levels this time around to M Sport variants and to standardise auto transmission, an 8-speed Steptronic box with launch control, has meant that the entry point for 4 Series Coupe ownership has risen quite a lot. When last we tested an updated version of the previous F32 series design back in 2017, this model line priced from around £33,000, but from the launch of this second generation G22 series Mark II model in the autumn of 2020, £40,000 became the sum necessary to get a place on the lowest rung of the ownership ladder. The mainstream range rises in price up to around £55,000. Even if you compare like with like, M Sport trim old and new, there's still a price hike of well over £5,000. Although, to be fair to BMW, this only reflects the kinds of figures that direct competitors are charging too, as we'll see in a moment. If budget is of little importance to you though, you'll have your eye on the top M4 competition flagship variant. That now gets 510 horsepower with X-Drive, 4-wheel drive, and prices at around £76,000. If you can't quite stretch to that, much the same engine and drivetrain package can be had at a saving of over £20,000 in the form of the M440i X-Drive, which presents the M4's 3-litre twin-turbo 6 in more accessible 374 HP form. It's more likely though, of course, that you'll be perusing one of the humbler variants, all offered with a choice of either base M Sport trim or for around £5,000 more with the ritzier M Sport Pro Edition package that we've been trying here. Engine-wise, quite possibly you will have settled on one of the 2 rear-driven 2-litre petrol derivatives, either this entry-level 4-cylinder 420i 184 horsepower model or the more potent 258 horsepower 430i variant. The only other option is a diesel. Yes, BMW still offers one in this car, primarily the brand's familiar 190 horsepower 2-litre twin-turbo unit, which commands a £2,500 price premium over the petrol 420i, but it has the advantage that, unlike the 4-cylinder petrol models, it can be ordered with optional X-Drive 4-wheel drive for £1,500 more. The top diesel is the 6-cylinder M440D X-Drive with 340 horsepower, but for that you'll need a budget of well over £55,000. At least the pricing here isn't too much of a step up from that required for an equivalent version of an ordinary 3 Series saloon on a typical personal contract purchase PCP finance scheme. You can think in terms of around £50 extra a month to own this coupe. Mind you, only a couple of decades ago, a 2-door 3 Series was actually cheaper than a 4-door one. That seems a very long time ago, doesn't it? Anyway, talking of premiums, we ought to point out here that very much the same engineering and design package as is available on a 4 Series coupe like this one can also be offered in cabrio guise in the form of BMW's 4 Series convertible. Now that commands a price premium of just under £5,500 over this fixed top version. Closer to the price of this coupe is the 5-door Grand Coupe version of this 4 Series model. It's this 2-door coupe model that's our focus here though, a car that really has only 2 really direct rivals, coupe versions of the Mercedes C-Class and the Audi A5. Directly comparable mainstream versions of those 2 models priced at only a little less than BMW is asking here. Remember though that 2-wheel drive versions of the A5 coupe are front driven, so they won't be quite as involving to drive as their rear driven 4 Series coupe counterparts. A C-Class coupe that is rear driven, but it's still more of a cruiser than a bruiser, and it has a significantly smaller boot than you'll find in this BMW. As for other coupe options in the sector, well, we don't think many typical 4 Series coupe customers will be minded to consider them, either the uber laid-back hybrid-engined Lexus RC or the wild, extravagant and frankly rather in-your-face Ford Mustang. Neither of those two will save you very much over this Munich model. Mercedes does also offer a coupe version of its E-Class, but that's a much more softly set up than a 4 Series, and it retails at a slightly higher price point in the £45,000 to £70,000 bracket. All of which means that if you really want a car in this segment, you might very well end up really wanting a 4 Series coupe, in which case you're going to want to know what your money will be buying you in terms of standard equipment. So let's see. And this base M Sport model comes with 18-inch M light alloy double spoke wheels and a subtle M aerodynamic body styling kit with an M rear spoiler and high gloss shadow line exterior trim. The most important benefits of the M Sport upgrade though are felt inside, where there's Vinasca leather upholstery in a choice of 5 colours, an anthracite headliner, aluminium tetragon inlays with pearl chrome finishing, an instrument panel in stitched Sensatec man-made leather, and the thick M Sport steering wheel that BMW folk like so much. There's also passive M Sport suspension, a little firm, so do try before you buy, and a variable sport steering system that will cost extra on the equivalent 3 Series, and which is supposed to offer more response the more lock you apply. Plus, of course, as you'd expect for the money being asked here, you get a full roster of luxury segment features, full LED headlamps, acoustic side glass, ambient lighting, stitched Sensatec man-made leather for the instrument binnacle, through-loading folding rear seat backs, and 3-zone climate control. There's loads of help for slotting this car into tight bays too, not only all-round parking sensors and a reversing camera, but also a parking assistant that automatically steers you into spaces, and a reversing assistant that, when you return after parking up, can automatically reverse you along whichever path you've previously taken forward. In addition, pretty much all the stuff you'd expect from a premium executive model of this price is present and correct too. So tick off auto headlamps and wipers, power folding heated mirrors, an alarm and LED illumination for the tail lamps and the front fog lights, along with cruise control, an anti-dazzle rear view mirror, and the usual BMW driving experience driving mode setup with its comfort, Eco Pro and sport settings. BMW has additionally standardised its lovely welcome light carpet, which illuminates the ground around the front doors when you get into the car or step out of it at night. Annoyingly though, a space-saver spare wheel isn't available, and run-flat tyres can't be had with the 18-inch wheels of M Sport trim either. Perhaps the most significant element of M Sport trim though is the brand's sophisticated BMW Live Cockpit Professional arrangement. That gives you a large 10.25-inch centre dash screen and a further even bigger 12.3-inch control display to replace the conventional dials in the instrument cluster. Also included is what BMW calls an intelligent personal assistant that works a bit like the Siri or Google Assistant systems that you might use on your phone, and that is there to answer questions that you can voice to the car as you drive it. Plus, of course, there's 3D navigation, Bluetooth and a high-quality DAB audio setup. In addition, the brand now, at last, offers the Apple CarPlay and Android Auto smartphone integration system as standard without time limit, so you can easily use your favourite apps in the car. As brand loyalists would expect, this second generation 4 Series model includes plenty of the brand's really clever digital connectivity features too, including the full suite of BMW Connected Package professional services. Things like real-time traffic information, now that will warn you of congestion along your chosen route, and connected parking. Now that offers multi-storey and on-street parking information in selected cities in the UK and in Europe. There's also BMW's concierge service, which at the press of a button will give you direct access to an operator who will be able to answer almost any question about your journey as you're driving it. And the connected package professional setup now includes connected music, which offers unlimited streaming of millions of songs into the vehicle from Spotify. In-car experiences are one-shot cabin modes that are able to instantly adapt the interior ambiance to suit your mood. Plus, there's also the company's suite of BMW vehicle apps that give you access to things like news reports, weather forecasts for up to 4 days ahead, and information on highway tolls. In addition, the system can remotely update itself with fresh features and mapping upgrades, and of course, it will read out your text messages to you. We'll also mention teleservices, which can decide when a garage visit is required and automatically book it for you. And as a customer of this Munich maker, you'll get a 3-month trial of a connected teaser package, which gives you BMW music, and that allows you to export your favorite soundtracks into your car. If you've owned a BMW before, you might already be familiar with the standard remote services package, which allows you to control many aspects of your vehicle's operation via your smartphone. And you'll maybe also recognize the downloadable My BMW app, which can learn your mobility routines. It could read your calendar and even prompt you when to leave for scheduled journeys. It'll get familiar with your most frequently traveled routes, and it will memorize them as future destinations. Plus, the app will also help you to find your car if you've gone and forgotten where you parked it, and it can also remotely lock or unlock the doors. All of that is included with standard M Sport trim, but if you're not able to stretch to one of the potent M Performance variants and you're sticking with this base spec level, then we think you really ought to think carefully about finding an extra £2,500 to get yourself the optional M Sport Pro pack that we have here, which adds in some key extra features we think you'll really want on this car. In our view, the most important of these is adaptive M suspension. Now that works through the various driving experience drive modes, and it adds an extra one, adaptive. And particularly with the comfort setting selected, it allows you to take the firm edge off this car's ride demeanor over porous surfaces. Other pack elements that you'll appreciate include the sprint mode, and that gives you a quick extra burst of power for sharp overtakes. Greater stopping power from the M Sport braking system, and that's showcased by blue calipers. A throatier engine note from the enhanced active sound design pack, and the fact that the larger 19-inch jet black painted M light alloy double spoke wheel rims come fitted with run flat tyres. Plus, the M Sport Pro package also includes M seat belts, sun protection glass, and a wider range of the brand's individual high gloss Shadowline exterior trim elements. With the 430i variant, the M Sport Pro package gives you the brand's M Sport Differential 2, which shunts torque across the back axles between the rear wheels for greater cornering traction. So that optional pack's probably worth having. We think there's much less of an argument for finding £5,000 over the cost of an M Sport trimmed mainstream 4 Series Coupe and upgrading to the top M Sport Pro Edition level of trim that your dealer will probably want to tell you about. Now with that top spec, you get all the features of the M Sport Pro package that we've just mentioned, plus your 4 Series Coupe will also come finished in a more exclusive BMW individual exterior metallic paint shade, either Dravit Grey, Tanzanite Blue or Aventurin Red. These colours complement the black finish for the door mirror caps and for the rear spoiler, which aims to further set the M Sport Pro Edition models apart. For the desirable M Performance M440i xDrive and M440d xDrive models, think in terms of what you get with M Sport trim and the M Sport Pro package, plus a few extra nice to have details, namely the standardization of the M Sport differential, plus evocative red brake calipers, freeform exhaust tailpipe finishers, and a cooler cerium grey finish for the air breathers, the front kidney grille, the mirror caps, and the model designation badge work. As for the top M4 competition flagship version, well, that's set apart from the two M Performance variants by a CFRP carbon fibre reinforced plastic roof, 19 or 20-inch bi-colour black M double spoke forged alloy wheels, plus a black finish for the rear diffuser, the rear spoiler, and the M Sport exhaust system. Inside in an M4 there are embossed powered M Sport seats trimmed in softer stitched merino leather, plus carbon fibre trim, an M leather multifunction steering wheel and an M head-up display. Drive stuff for the M4 includes M Steptronic transmission with drive logic, an active M differential, M compound brakes and the extra driving modes of the M Drive Professional package. Our focus here though is on the more mainstream 4 Series Coupe models. If you're looking at one of those and you want to embellish things a bit with a few well-chosen extras, what will your dealer be able to offer to tempt you? Well, we've already mentioned what should be your starting point here, and that's the M Sport Pro pack. But what if you want to go further? Well, let's kick off our pack perusal with the Visibility Pack, which for £1,500 more includes a high beam assistant. Now that will automatically dip your headlights for you at night. Plus you also get BMW's piercing blue themed laser lights, which give a beam range of 600 meters. If you're tempted by that, then you'll probably also want to look at the optional Technology Pack. Now that, for around £1,900 more, gets you a head-up display, gesture control for the infotainment system, enhanced Bluetooth with wireless charging, an upgraded Harman Kardon loudspeaker audio system, and in-car Wi-Fi, which offers a high-speed LTE internet connection for up to 10 devices. The Alternative Technology Plus pack we have here gets you all of those Technology Pack features along with the full contents of the Driving Assistant Professional Camera Safety package that we'll cover off for you when we get on to talking about safety later. Otherwise, the Technology Plus package is all about parking. It includes BMW's Park Assistant Plus remote 3D view surround view camera system, the cameras for which are also employed in another clever feature, and that's the brand's Drive Recorder. Now this is like a dash cam, except it's a lot more sophisticated. The Drive Recorder uses inbuilt cameras to record video footage from different points around the vehicle before storing the event and crash recordings so that they can be either watched later on the control display or exported via the USB port. Recordings can be up to 40 seconds in length. For accident playback, you'll get 20 seconds before the impact and then 20 seconds after it. If luxury is more your focus than technology, there's a comfort pack, which for around £1,000 more gives you steering wheel heating, comfort access keyless entry, including a powered boot lid that you can activate with a wave of your foot beneath the bumper, and BMW's extended storage pack, which gives you some extra storage features, a cargo bay net, seat back nets, bag hooks, an extra 12-volt socket in the boot, and so on. The Comfort Plus pack that we have here has all those comfort pack features, plus lumbar support and powered adjustment for the front seats. If you like some of the features just mentioned, but you don't want to stretch to one of those pricey packs, then you'll find that a number of them can be ordered individually if your 4 Series Coupe doesn't already have them. That includes the M Sport braking system, the iconic Sounds Sport engine note enhancement, the Parking Assistant Plus surround view camera system, and the Drive Recorder. You can also place an individual order for the powered electric sunroof, sun protection glass, the Harman Kardon loudspeaker audio system upgrade, in-car Wi-Fi and enhanced Bluetooth. Okay, on to aesthetic upgrades. More optional packs are available to you here. We'll start with the Shadowline Plus pack, which with base M Sport trim solves the obvious problem inherent in a car without a spare wheel lacking run flat tyres by providing run flats shod on larger 19-inch jet black painted M light alloy double spoke wheels. In addition, the Shadowline Plus pack throws in extra elements of BMW's individual high gloss Shadowline exterior trim, including Shadowline BMW individual lights and black mirror caps. Alternatively, you could go for the M Carbon exterior package, which trims the air breathers, the mirror caps, the rear diffuser and the rear spoiler in carbon fibre. And beyond that, well, bear in mind, unless you want your 4 Series Coupe in the only solid colour available, Alpine White, you'll need to be paying your dealer more for one of the offered metallic shades. We've got Arctic Race Blue here. If you've specified the M Sport braking system, you can change the blue calipers for high gloss red ones. With M Sport trim, you can opt for a 19-inch wheel upgrade too. As part of the M Performance Parts portfolio, a jet black 20-inch wheel upgrades available as well for those who keep their chiropractor on speed dial. Other M Performance Parts options include a carbon fibre front grille, front splitter and side skirt attachments, plus aero flicks for the front apron in high gloss black. If you want to upgrade the cabin, you can do so by adding in piano black trim and or aluminium mesh effect inlays. On an M Sport Pro Edition variant, there's the option of softer extended merino leather upholstery. As for practical options, well, we'd want the luggage compartment mat and possibly the all-weather floor mats for muddier months. You might also like to add in a tow bar, and that would enable you to add a rear bike carrier. And roof bars are available too, which will enable you to add the optional black roof box. BMW additionally offers an advanced car eye dash cam, and as usual, it'd be wise to include BMW's optional TrackStar system for stolen vehicle tracking. Okay, enough with standard kit and options, let's get on to consider safety provision. BMW wants to assure us that this G2 2 Series design is intrinsically very safe, thanks to a comprehensive passive safety concept which features a super stiff passenger cell and highly resilient supporting structures. It also includes integrated safety electronics that deploy the restraint systems in the right sequence at the optimum moment and with the required effect for the type and the severity of the collision. Of course, there are the usual twin front and side bags too, plus a driver's knee bag. As you'd expect, there are front and rear ISOFIX child seat fastenings and also the usual electronic assistance for traction and stability control, primarily DSC plus stability control and DTC traction control. There's a trailer stabilization function which will stop trailer sway if you have a trailer fitted, and hill start assistant to stop you from drifting backwards on uphill junctions. There's plenty of braking peace of mind too, with the ABS system supplemented by fading compensation, CBC cornering brake control and a neat brake drying system that keeps the brake discs free of moisture in wet weather. Panic stops are aided by a brake assist system and they're advertised to following motorists by dynamic brake lights that flash a bright warning. You'll also get an active bonnet to minimise injuries in the nightmare scenario of a pedestrian collision, and a multi-collision braking function which, in the event of an impact with a solid object or another vehicle, will keep the brake pressure applied until you come to a complete stop. Tyre pressure monitoring is standard too. Another neat safety feature fitted as standard across the range is the attentiveness assistant, which monitors you for signs of drowsiness. Let's also highlight the standard BMW emergency call with teleservices system, which in an accident can automatically alert the emergency services. This system not only gives them your exact GPS location, but it also provides recovery personnel with information on your speed at point of impact, how hard the seat belts were pulled, how many of the airbags burst and so on. So if you were to have a crash, it would all mean not only that the emergency teams would know exactly where you were, but also that they would arrive on the scene more prepared and more ready to get you to safety than they could ever otherwise be. And that's a potentially life-saving difference. The setup's now been further improved to also automatically activate after low speed collisions below the threshold for airbag deployment, immediately after the impact, flashing up an iDrive screen message offering to contact BMW's Accident Assistance Service directly. We should further mention that to meet current customer expectations, a full range of camera-driven safety features is included, which was long overdue for this model. As recently as 2017, with the updated version of the previous F22 generation version of this car, BMW didn't offer any kind of autonomous braking system as standard on the 4 Series Coupe, and that's the sort of thing we've long had as standard on many family runabouts. This time around, BMW Group its main camera-driven safety features in the Active Guard Plus intelligent safety package that's familiar from the other models, the key element of which, as you might expect, is autonomous braking, or as the Munich maker likes to call it, front collision warning with city braking. Now this system works as these kinds of setups usually do. At over 30 miles an hour, the vehicle scans the road ahead for potential accident hazards. And if one's detected, you'll be warned and the brakes will be preconditioned for maximum effectiveness. If you are traveling at under 30 miles an hour and you're not responding to a detected hazard, then the brakes will automatically be applied, and that will reduce the severity of any resulting accident and hopefully alleviate it altogether. There are two other standard Active Guard Plus features. Lane departure warning with steering impulse alerts you if you cross the lane delineating lines, and speed limit information pictures road signs as you pass them and displays them on the dash. If you want more in terms of camera-driven safety tech, you're going to have to stump up for the extra cost Driving Assistant Professional Pack that we have here, which has to be had as part of the Technology Plus package that we mentioned earlier. That means that this enhanced safety pack isn't cheap, a whacking £3,650 more at the time of this car's launch. Still, it does include the choicest parts of BMW's safety, camera and autonomous driving technology, as you're about to hear. The autonomous driving part of the Driving Assistant Professional Pack lies primarily with two elements. There's active cruise control with approach control, and that's there to regulate your distance to the vehicle in front, and it's able, if necessary, to even slow you right down to a stop and then start you off again. It incorporates a radar-based approach control function which senses other traffic around you and which can adapt the throttle and brakes accordingly. But the real highlight of this optional Driving Assistant Professional Pack is BMW's now improved steering and lane control assistant, which takes its bearings from road markings and vehicles driving ahead using data from a trifocal camera and a front range radar, enabling it to work with the driver to help to center the car in the detected lane with corrective steering input. The setup can make corrective steering interventions at speeds of up to 130 miles an hour, although you do still have to keep your hands on the wheel at all times. Now, we've found that it works particularly well in heavy traffic, especially now that it's been updated to include the brand's latest active navigation tech. Now, this system uses navigation data to spot in advance when a lane change will be required. In preparation, the system will automatically adjust the car's speed to make it easier to steer into a suitable gap in the adjacent lane. We mentioned that this Driving Assistant Professional Pack also includes a whole suite of BMW's latest camera safety tech, so let's brief you on that. There's active lane guidance, which adds subtle steering lock to ease you back to where you ought to be if the lane departure warning system that we mentioned earlier detects that you have inadvertently veered over the carriage lane delineating lines. In addition, as part of this extra cost pack, you also get BMW's lane keeping assistant with active side collision protection package. Now that incorporates side collision warning and lane change warning, all of which stops you from pulling out when there's a vehicle in your blind spot and adds in light steering intervention that will ease you back to where you ought to be on the road should you drift offline. We also like the pack's cross-traffic warning front feature, which alerts you to oncoming vehicles if you're trying to edge out of a junction and you can't completely see traffic coming at you from either side. There's also automatic speed limit assist, which works with the traffic sign recognition system to recognize speed limits and prevent you from exceeding them. We haven't finished yet either. The Driving Assistant Professional Pack also includes an evasion aid that gives you extra steering assistance in critical situations where it's still possible to avoid an accident. Say, for example, someone suddenly pulls out in front of you, or you suddenly have to make a dramatic lane change to avoid slow-moving traffic. Plus there's crossroads warning, incorporating give way warning, which alerts you to traffic coming at you from the sides at a crossroads. And finally, as the name suggests, wrong way warning makes an enormous fuss if you forget yourself and end up going the wrong way down a one-way street. It's all very reassuring. For all the talk of big horsepower, muscular styling and clever tech, perhaps the most impressive thing about this 4 Series Coupe is its cost effectiveness. For some reason, you don't expect a car with class-leading drive dynamics to be also class-leading in terms of running cost efficiency, but this one delivers just that, which is just as well because the business buyers who primarily populate this sector are notoriously unforgiving of cars that slip below standard in this area. You can love the way that this Munich model carves its way through your favourite back doubles all you like, but if it doesn't stack up on the balance sheet, then you're very unlikely to get the nod from accounts that'll enable you to run one. Anyway, for the time being, it does, in CO2 terms anyway, which for a company user is the most important factor. The claimed 55 kilogram weight saving that's been achieved this time around certainly helps here, although it's worth pointing out that a rival second generation Audi A5 Coupe, a design that's been on sale since 2017, remains around 45 kilos lighter still. For reference, the other key class rival, the Mercedes C-Class Coupe, is typically around 60 kilos heavier than a comparable 4 Series Coupe, but of course a good efficiency showing is about more than just lightweight. Probably the key improvement with this Mark II G22 era 4 Series Coupe has been the extension across the range of the Bavarian brand's hybrid technology, 48-volt mild hybrid technology in this case. The company has its PHEV plug-in tech ready and waiting, but at the time of this test, in early 2021, it hadn't made it yet available to 4 Series Coupe customers, although we're expecting it probably will be. Anyway, the much less effective 48-volt mild hybrid technology you can have features on the 420D diesel variants and the M440i xDrive petrol model, and it works as mild hybrid systems these days usually do. Fitting a powerful 48-volt starter generator and a tiny second battery enables a significant increase in the amount of brake energy that can be regenerated and stored. This energy is not only used to supply the electrical system, but also to lighten the combustion engine's workload and to boost its power too. The starter generator also increases efficiency by assisting the engine when you're driving at constant speeds. As a result of all that, here are the WLTP rated stats that'll get the approval of your accountant or your company fleet manager. Best possible figures, these are quoted based on M Sport trimmed models with the smallest available 18-inch wheel size. The bigger 19-inch rims that you may well want will obviously impact these stats a little. Anyway, we'll start with the rear-driven mild hybrid 420D diesel variant, which in this second generation form features sequential multi-stage turbocharging, and it remains a popular derivative in the lineup, and that's primarily because it can deliver up to 61.4 miles per gallon on the combined cycle and up to 121 grams per kilometre of CO2. That means benefit-in-kind tax rated in the 23 to 25% range. These are stats good enough to shade the returns possible with both of this car's key rivals, the Mercedes C220D Coupe and the Audi A5 Coupe TDI S-Tronic. Inevitably, adding the extra weight of the brand's xDrive four-wheel drive system impacts the 420D's readings a little to bests of 57.6 mpg and 129 grams per kilometre. For completion, we'll also give you the figures for the 6-cylinder diesel variants. The 430D xDrive manages up to 45.6 mpg and up to 146 grams per kilometre. The M440D xDrive delivers up to 42.2 mpg and up to 158 grams per kilometre. All 4 Series Coupe diesel derivatives use BMW's Blue Performance technology, and that includes a particulate filter, an oxidation catalyst, an NOx absorption catalyst and an SCR catalyst with AdBlue injection. Now you'll probably be familiar with AdBlue by now because most modern Euro 6 diesel power plants use it. It's a urea additive which mixes with the hot exhaust gases from the engine. As the urea combines with those fumes, it turns many of the harmful chemicals into nothing more noxious than water and nitrogen, and that's what makes up most of the Earth's atmosphere. You can tell all that to the barstool experts who talk as if diesel cars alone are responsible for smogging up our cities. These people will certainly point you to petrol power, and given the current zeitgeist and the government tax disincentives to fuel from the black pump, you'll certainly want to consider it if the running cost difference wasn't too great. Is that the case then? Well, you decide. The rear-driven version of the base 420i petrol model that we're trying here does without the 48-volt mild hybrid tech, but it still manages up to 44.1 mpg and up to 146 grams per kilometre, so benefiting kind tax is rated in the 32 to 33% range. These are readings that fall only slightly with the 430i variant that uses a 258 HP version of that derivative's same 2-litre petrol engine. With the 430i, you're looking at up to 42.2 mpg and up to 153 grams per kilometre of CO2. Either way, drive a bit harder as we've been doing, and you're probably looking at a day-to-day return of around 30 mpg. For the 6-cylinder M440i X-Drive mild hybrid model, the fuel figure is rated up at 36.7 mpg, but the CO2 reading falls sharply to 175 grams per kilometre. All the figures that we've just quoted for all the available engines assume that the car is being run in the driving experience system's most frugal Eco Pro mode. In this setting, the air conditioning and the power steering only work when required to save energy, and what's called a proactive driving assistant is activated too. Now, you don't get an Eco Pro setting on the top 510 horsepower 3-litre petrol M4 competition variant, which is one reason why the figures with that model are quite a way behind those of the similarly engined M440i. An M4 is rated at 28.2 mpg and up to 228 grams per kilometre of CO2, which, to give you a point of reference, is quite a bit worse than an Audi RS5 coupe, but quite a lot better than the Mercedes AMG C63 coupe. Whatever kind of 4 Series Coupe power plant you choose, it'll benefit from the Munich maker's various efficient dynamics technologies. Those are there to keep running costs in check. There's an engine auto start stop system, as you'd expect, and at highway speeds, the cruise control can seamlessly decouple the engine from the transmission to reduce friction and to consequently save fuel. The brand has also put a great deal of effort into aerodynamics too, and they've given this G2 2 Series design a redesigned active air flap system in the front grille, plus an almost completely sealed underbody to work with the front air curtain slits, which channel air more smoothly over the aerodynamically optimized wheels. The result is a useful drag coefficient gain, which improves to 0.25 CD this time around. Of course, the driver will need to do his or her part, and you'll want to keep an eye on how frugal your recent mileage has been. A journey data part of the centre dash infotainment screen's driving information section shows a useful fuel graph to brief you on that. The same section also has an energy flow graphic showing you at any time what is being powered by what. And there's a driving style analysis screen too, which, when the Eco Pro mode is activated, rates your driving with marks out of 5 for anticipation and acceleration, and it works out the extra mileage range that any more frugal driving has gained you. What else? Well, in the vehicle status section of the centre dash screen, there's a general check control which allows you to monitor the status of various vehicle functions. Plus, there are also separate screens which will allow you to specifically oversee things like tyre pressure and the current level of engine oil, and on a diesel model, the AdBlue additive. You can check on service requirements too, and you can use a clever teleservices feature which comes as part of the BMW Connected Drive services, and you can also access that through the iDrive infotainment system. Via this, before each service appointment is due, your 4 Series can automatically put a teleservices call through to your nominated BMW service centre, complete with detailed information on vehicle condition. you'll then get a call to arrange a service appointment, and that's something that you will have already budgeted for if at the point of original purchase you opted for one of the two fixed cost service inclusive or service inclusive plus packages, which cover you for 5 years or 50,000 miles. With these, after a one-off payment, and that can be as little as around £400, you'll have the peace of mind of knowing that all the normal work on the car has been paid for during that period. That includes items such as oil, spark plugs and filters. What else might you need to know? Well, because all 4 Series Coupes now cost over £40,000, your vehicle excise duty will cost £450 a year for the first 5 years of ownership. Bear that in mind when adding in extras. Residual values, well, we'd expect the depreciation on this second generation 4 Series Coupe to be pretty similar to that of its direct predecessor, which would mean a very competitive retained value of about 45% after 3 years and 60,000 miles. Onto the warranty package. BMW's warranty only lasts for 3 years, but it includes an emergency breakdown service, and at least it isn't mileage limited either, unlike the comparable package that you would get as standard with the rival Audi. You can of course extend the warranty with either monthly or annual payments. There's a 3-year paintwork warranty and the usual 12-year anti-corrosion warranty. As for insurance groups, well, you're looking at Group 32 or 33 for a 420D. Onto petrol power, a 420i has ratings starting at either Group 30 or 31, while for a 430i, the ratings are Group 34 or 35. For an M440i xDrive, it's Group 40E, and for an M4 competition, it's Group 42E. So, is this BMW 4 Series Coupe still the car in this class that does it all, the sector benchmark, the go-to choice in its segment? Well, if you're the kind of driving enthusiast that this model has traditionally appealed to, the answer is probably yes. Overall, there's a sustained level of excellence shot throughout this contender that Audi A5 and Mercedes C-Class coupe rivals still can't quite match. That's something especially evident when it comes to handling dynamics, which have been usefully improved in this Mark II model, especially when it comes to suspension and steering response. There's a levity about this 4 Series, a certain joy you get in driving it that the others can't quite emulate. Great then that it does all the sensible stuff really well too. You get a much improved and very lovely cabin with cutting-edge media tech, a spacious boot, comparatively decent rear legroom, very competitive day-to-day running costs and sensible residual values, which all helps your conscience. Why? Well, because this is a car that, exactly because of those attributes, you can buy and use hard without that nagging sense of guilt that you might have slightly overindulged yourself. Can it be criticised? Well, it would have been nice if the significant price rise which accompanied the launch of this second generation G22 series model could have included adaptive M suspension, which we think you really need to think seriously about adding to the lower powered variants in order to combat the slightly firm ride. Plus, of course, we could talk about that divisive front grille, but that's a subjective call. At least BMW's tried to give this design some sense of individual identity. And most of the people criticising that feature are the same ones who complained that the previous generation model wasn't distinct enough from a 3 Series. On balance, we'd always favour daring design over stifling conformity. What's not up for debate is that here, BMW has built a benchmark contender in this class. That sounds rather clinical, doesn't it? So let's allow the Munich makers' marketing men to have the last word. This car, they say, is more than just a love letter to performance. Instead, it offers something deeper than that, the promise of a passionate affair.